Hi, it's Grandma Karen. You have thread on your bobbin now. Let's thread the machine and the bobbin. Before we begin, let's talk safety. If I work near the needle, I do one of the following. I move my foot pedal away from my foot, or I unplug the foot pedal, or I turn off my machine. Your presser foot needs to be in the up position before you begin threading the top of the machine. You've seen this stitch note before. The presser foot must be in the up position when threading the top of the machine to ensure the thread goes into the tension discs. We will do a little experiment with this at the end of the lesson to help you understand. Put your spool of thread on the proper spool pin. The vertical spool pin for stack thread, horizontal spool pin for cross-wound thread. Use a thread stand if it's needed. Review Lesson 7 if you have forgotten what the two types of thread and spool pins are. I put this stack thread on this spool pin, and from the spool I go through this thread guide, this first thread guide under there, and then it's going to go down the groove in the front of the machine. Here's a close-up. The pink arrow is pointing to the tension discs inside the machine. Let's look at some other machines. Picture A shows the thread guide in the back of the machine. Then the thread goes into the groove. Picture B has a round black and silver guide. It is not the same as the bobbin winder pre-tension stud that is silver in the back. Then it goes down the groove. The thread in picture C is pulled down into the thread guide and into the groove. In picture D, the thread goes around a square and then into the left groove instead of the right one. Picture E is a little curly-Q thread guide before going into the groove. Each machine is different. So now the thread goes down this groove in the front of the machine all the way down, and it goes under this thread guide, which has a check spring inside of it. Then it's going to go back up the other side of the other groove, and it's going to go across the top of your take-up lever and then back down into the same groove until it gets down to the needle, which we'll do in a minute. Your check spring thread guide may look like one of these. Remember the take-up lever? We learned about it in Lesson 5. The take-up lever needs to be in the highest or up position when you thread the top of the machine. If you have a computerized machine, it will turn on with the take-up lever in the up position. If you have a mechanical machine, then you might have to turn the hand wheel towards you until it is at its highest position. Your take-up lever may look like one of these. The thread usually just pulls into the take-up lever as you pull the thread over it, unless it's a very old machine, and then you'll have to thread it through the hole. Here is a close-up photo. Thread goes down the right side, under the check spring guide, up the left side, over the take-up lever, and down in the same groove to the needle. On this machine, I put the thread through this guide, right like that. There's a little spring in there it went through. Now down the front of the machine, but instead of a check spring, there is a little dial here with the tension discs inside. There's also a spring inside this dial. You're going to keep the thread tight around this and catch it on the spring in there. Then you're going to go up and over, all the way back to go over that take-up lever. And then I'm going to go back down into that groove, the same groove, until I get down to the needle. Some older machines have a tension dial that looks like this. The machine I just showed you has the spring inside the tension dial, but this machine shows the spring on the outside of the dial. The blue arrow points to the thread caught in the spring. This is the way it should look. Just hold the thread tight while it comes up on the left side of the dial so it goes into the spring correctly. This may seem confusing, but the bottom line is the thread goes down, up, down. Every machine has a different thread guide and tension, but the thread path is almost always down, up, down. The thread now goes into a thread guide on the needle bar. Your thread guide may look like one of these. The arrows are pointing to the side with the opening on the thread guide, the place where you will pull the thread into the guide. You will need scissors to cut the thread before threading the needle. There are many types of scissors. The scissors in the left photo are fabric cutting scissors. Notice that all of these have a piece of yarn tied to the handle. You should not cut thread or paper or do crafts with fabric scissors. Everyone in my house knows not to use these. Cutting paper or thread with fabric scissors makes them dull, and then they don't cut fabric very well. They are expensive, so don't use them to cut thread. The middle photo shows small embroidery and some school scissors. If they are sharp, they work well for cutting thread. The right photo has standard scissors, great for cutting paper and doing crafts. Some of them will also be good for cutting threads. To thread the needle, you can put the presser foot down. It will be easier. Cut the thread on a diagonal, not straight across. This makes a little point on the thread and makes it easier to put the thread into the eye of the needle. The left photo shows cutting the thread on the diagonal. The right photo is of the needle. I wet my finger with my mouth, and if that's too gross, then you can do it with water from the sink. Then you wet the back of the eye or the hole of the needle. The spit or water on the back of the needle helps draw the thread into the needle. Hold the thread with your thumb and your index finger. Have about a half an inch of thread sticking out. Not too much, or the thread is going to droop down. Push the thread through the eye of the needle. Sometimes it is easier to see the eye if the presser foot is on. It gives kind of a silver or white background behind it, and it's easier to see. As the thread goes into the eye, continue to push your thumb and your finger to the back of the needle and grab a hold of the thread and pull it out about 4 to 6 inches. I've put the needle down a little bit with my hand wheel, and I take this thread and I put it sideways like this, and I just put it back there, and it goes into the thread guide. Remember, each one is going to be a little bit different. Then I'm going to put my needle at its highest position. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut this on a diagonal. And pull my thread out a little bit. I'm wetting my finger and I'm putting it on the back of the eye of the needle. I have about a half an inch of thread sticking out in front of my fingers. I find the hole and I try to go in. Sometimes it takes a couple times. Now that thread is coming out the back of the hole of the needle, and I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to keep going back and pull on that thread with my fingers. So I can show you on this giant needle a little bit easier than showing you on the machine. I took my thread, and this is a bigger thread, so hopefully you can see this, and I wet the back of my needle, cut this on the diagonal, I put it in there, and then I let my fingers go around to the back and grab a hold of it and pull it at least a little bit so that I can let go and then pull it with my other hand. And that's how you thread the needle. The thread should not be wrapped around the needle like the photo on the left. This happens sometimes. Pull the thread down a little and let it go back into the correct position so it is coming straight off the needle like the photo on the right. The thread tail should be coming from the back of the eye of the needle. There are other ways to thread the needle, and we will talk about them in our next lesson. Okay, let's do an experiment with the tension. Put the presser foot up and then pull on this top thread. See how it's coming out? Now I'm going to put the presser foot down, and when I pull on it, it's really, really tight. It's like hard to pull out. This is because the tension discs are now closed. This keeps a nice even tightness on the top thread. When the foot is up, the thread goes in between the tension discs. If the foot is down when you thread the tension area, the thread may sit on top of the discs instead of inside of them. You would have terrible stitches if this happened. On some older machines, the take-up lever may be on the side of the machine. The needle goes into the machine with the eye of the needle on the side of the machine instead of in front of the machine. These kinds of machines thread from left side to right side. When we put the thread on the bobbin, we call it winding the bobbin. Putting the bobbin into the machine is called threading the bobbin. The bobbin goes into a bobbin case. These are two kinds of bobbin cases. Some machines have what is called a drop-in bobbin, like this. And this black part actually stays in the machine. Other machines have what's called a removable bobbin, and the bobbin goes in like that. Both types of bobbin cases need to be threaded. In other words, the thread needs to follow a certain pathway to work correctly. The bobbin also has a tension on it. It is controlled by a screw. You can watch me thread both types of bobbin, or you can just go to the part that shows your bobbin case. This machine has a drop-in bobbin. You will first have to open the bobbin case cover. This one slides toward the front of the machine and pops off. I put this cover in a small plate or bowl so it doesn't get lost. If there's already a bobbin in the machine, you're going to just lift it out with your fingers. You're going to stick your fingers underneath this, your fingernail, and you're just going to pull it up. And you don't want to like yank this thread out. Just try to pull it out softly so that you don't hurt the tension. There are several styles of bobbin case covers. The top two photos are the same machine. It has a black button that you push to the side to open the cover. The left photo shows the cover closed and the right cover shows the cover off. The bottom two photos show covers that slide to the front of the machine to open. Some machines have a drawing that shows you the correct way to thread the bobbin case. It may be on the bobbin case cover or on the machine itself. Put your wound bobbin onto your hand or onto the table. Flip the bobbin over until you see the thread forming a P, like the bobbin in this photo. The blue arrow is pointing to the bobbin case, which is black. This is how you will drop the bobbin into the machine. It forms a P for perfect stitches. The machine in this photo has a little slit in the black bobbin case. The thread goes into the slit, which is letter A in the picture. The thread gets pulled to the left and then into another slit, which is letter B. The tail is pulled out about 6 inches. Putting a finger on the bobbin to prevent it from spinning while you thread it may help. Let me show you how to do this on this machine. I make sure that the bobbin is forming a P, and I drop it in here. And then I'm going to hold my finger there and I'm going to go through that first slit. So I stuck it in the first slit and then I'm pulling it down until it goes, I heard it pop or felt it pop into that second slit. And then on this machine, I pull it around here and then there's a little cutter right there and I cut the thread off. And then I put the door back in place. These are what I call removable bobbin cases. The machine may have this type of bobbin case. The left bobbin case is shown outside the machine. The other two are still inside the machine. Each looks a little different. Your bobbin case will look similar to these. If your bobbin case is inside the machine, you will have to take it out. Open the bobbin case cover. On this bobbin case, I have to lift this little latch right here. There's a little latch that I lifted up. And then you're just going to pull it straight out. Some machines don't have this latch, and there's a different way to take the bobbin out. And then let me show you. When I have the latch open, the bobbin does not come out. But if I let go of the latch, then I can easily just drop it into my hand. And I'm not going to yank on this and pull this thread. I'm just going to very gently pull it or cut it because there is the tension spring and I don't want to yank on the tension spring. Lay the bobbin on the table or on the palm of your hand. Flip the bobbin over until it forms a Q. Q is for quality quilting stitches. Hold the bobbin case with the whole side up or facing you. Put the bobbin onto the bobbin case. The bobbin should still form a Q. Turn the bobbin to its side so it's facing towards you and find the little slit on the side. The pink arrow is pointing to the slit in this bobbin case. In the photo you can see that I have pulled the tail of the thread into the slit. Notice that my thumb is holding the bobbin so it does not spin. This makes it easier to thread the bobbin case. The left photo shows the thread has been pulled up until it stops. The red dashes show the thread under the metal spring. The right photo shows that the thread is pulled to the right until it is coming out of the hole. Leave about 4 to 6 inches of tail coming out of the bobbin case. To put the bobbin case into the machine, hold the bobbin case by the open latch. Put the bobbin into the hook area. See the post that is in the machine? The green arrow points to it. The center hole of the bobbin goes onto this post. This bobbin case has a little finger on it. The finger is pointing up. The blue arrow points to it. The latch is pointing to the side. So I've got the bobbin in my hand, usually flat in my hand or on the table. I'm making sure that my bobbin is forming the Q with the thread coming off of that side over there. I'm going to drop it in there, and then I'm going to turn this to face sideways, and I'm going to pull that thread into that slit. I pull it up till it stops, and then I'm going to pull it over to the right until it goes into this tension right there. You do not want to yank this because this is the spring, so you want to be gentle when you're doing that. So I'm going to hold this bobbin with the latch open. So here's the latch that I'm opening. And notice I have about 4 to 6 inches hanging off of there. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it on this metal rod right there in the middle. Put it on there. And I'm going to have the finger of the bobbin pointing up, and I'm going to push it until it makes that clicking noise. Sometimes it doesn't make the clicking noise, and so then you want to go like this and wiggle it a little bit and make sure that it's in there snug, and even rock your hand wheel back and forth a little bit to make sure it doesn't fall out. Because if it's not in there correctly, it will fall out when you start to sew. Older machines that thread the needle from left to right have a bobbin case that loads on the left side of the machine instead of on the front of the machine. Wow, that was a lot of information. Luckily, you only have to learn how to thread your machine. Use the manual that came with your machine and any drawings that are printed on the machine on how to thread it properly. Now it's time for your homework. Show your mentor that you can do the following. Properly thread the top of the machine going through all the guides and tension. Properly thread the bobbin case and thread the needle. And then 1. Place the thread on the correct spool or thread stand. 2. Does the presser foot need to be up or down when you're threading the top of the machine? Next time we will learn a little about sewing machine needles and learn to take them out and put new ones in. All sewing machines need to be cleaned of lint and dust. We will learn to do this. Some machines need to be oiled. We will also learn this. A dull needle, a lint-filled machine, or a machine needing oil can cause bad stitches. See you next time. And here's a note to the mentor. For our next lesson, you will need the following: a soft brush to clean the machine, sewing machine oil. Most drop-in bobbin machines do not need oil. Sewing machine needles, universal size 80-12 are good. Thread, cotton-covered polyester or all-purpose thread or 50-weight cotton thread are best. You may have these supplies already, and if not, then you can buy them at your fabric store or online. Thank you for helping someone learn to sew.